Australia's wild isn't just dangerous, it's unforgiving. One second you're admiring the view, the next you're inches from a beast that doesn't care who you are. These aren't just mistakes, they're jaw-dropping moments of pure stupidity. Kindness won't save you when instinct kicks in. So, why do people keep pushing their luck? Stick around, because these folks messed with the wrong animal and paid the price. 3 words wrapped in love, defiance, and sometimes heartbreak. It was May 2016. A quiet night, a starlit sky, 2 best friends laughing barefoot on a beach that looked like a dream. But in northern Australia, dreams can turn fast. Cindy Waldron wasn't the type to play it safe. A New Zealand native turned Aussie explorer. She lived behind a camera lens, chasing beauty, chasing stories, chasing life. Her best friend, Leanne Mitchell, had just beaten cancer. So instead of a party or a fancy dinner, they chose something more powerful, a victory trip to Daintree National Park, where the rainforest is ancient and the coast feels untouched by time. Their final stop, Thornton Beach. The reef on one side, the jungle on the other, paradise in every direction. But beneath the surface, something waited, something old, something watching. At 10:30 p.m., they stepped into the warm, dark water. They didn't hear splashing, no hiss, no warning, just one scream that ripped through the night. Cindy's. It's got me. A 14-foot saltwater crocodile had lunged from the depths and clamped onto her leg. Leanne didn't freeze. She turned, grabbed Cindy's arm, and held on with everything she had. She punched. She kicked. She screamed. "I've got you, babe. I've got you." She said like it could change the rules of nature. But it couldn't. The croc thrashed once more, hard, and tore Cindy into the black. Just like that, she was gone. Leanne stood there, alone, soaked in salt water and silence. Rescue teams were called. Hours later, helicopters swarmed. Rain hammered the coast. The terrain fought every step of the search. Eventually, they found the crocodile. And inside the truth, human remains. Cindy's family came to say goodbye. Her father, through tears, smiled the kind of smile only heartbreak can shape. "This is definitely on her list of crazy," he said, because Cindy lived big, bold, brave, the kind of person who chased life until the very edge and sometimes beyond. Locals weren't shocked. Croc warning signs are everywhere in the north, but signs fade into background noise. People believe bad things happen somewhere else, until they don't. Cindy's death wasn't just a tragedy. It was a story of loyalty, of courage, of love that didn't let go, even when it had to. And on that beach, where rainforest kisses the sea, the wild remembers. So there's a friend who whispered, "I've got you," even as the dark pulled her away, dragged into the deep. Some rivers don't ripple, they wait. The Adelaide River, winding through Australia's Northern Territory, looks peaceful, calm. But beneath that muddy surface is a predator's playground, home to creatures older than the dinosaurs, faster than you think, and hungrier than legend admits. In August 2014, that river added another name to its history, Tran Vanlon. And this time, the monster wasn't myth. It had a name, a size, and a body count. Tran was no tourist. He was a quiet man, a fisherman, a farmer, and a husband building a new life in a new land. After moving from Vietnam with his wife, Lei Bei, the two found comfort in a slow, simple rhythm. Sunsets, catfish, hand lines, peace. But peace can be deceptive. That day, Tran waded knee-deep near their favorite spot, golden light glinting off the water. Lei, ever cautious, warned him like she always did. "The crocodiles are out." Tran smiled. "Not here," he said. "They hunt elsewhere." But monsters don't check maps. At 5:30 p.m., Tran's line snagged. He stepped deeper. One step. That was all it took. The silence shattered with a splash so violent. It split the afternoon in half. Lei spun around. What she saw stole the air from her lungs. A crocodile, huge and heaving, had clamped down on her husband's arm. She ran, screaming, knife ready. But the river moved faster. Before she reached the edge, Tran was gone. She grabbed a hand line, pulling, begging. But all it gave her was dead weight and heartbreak. The water, calm once more, offered no answers. Lay toward the nearest crocodile tour operator, frantic. Within minutes, search crews were on the water, but the predator had a lead. Rangers had one suspect. Locals called him Michael Jackson, a 15-foot saltwater crocodile with a reputation. When they caught him, what they found was chilling. A human hand, an arm, later, a leg. Tran's remains were also found downstream. His death ignited a storm. Should these giants be culled again? Since the 1970s, croc hunting was banned to save a dwindling population. It worked, almost too well. Today, the Northern Territory is home to over 100,000 saltwater crocodiles. Fatal attacks are rare, but unforgiving. Tran was number 20 in 4 decades. Lay, along with others, demanded action. More traps, more warning signs, maybe even open hunting. But experts push back. Statistically, crocodiles kill fewer people than mosquitoes or pet dogs. The real problem? People who underestimate the wild. That's why the government launched Clockwise, a safety push to teach people how not to become part of the river story. Rule number 1, never wade into murky water at dusk. It sounds simple, but in the wild, the difference between living and vanishing is just one step. Tran Vanlon's story isn't about fear. It's about respect for the water, for the unseen, because the river doesn't play favorites. It waits, and when you least expect it, it strikes. Because in nature, there's no director yelling cut. Adventure doesn't hand out warnings. Just ask Ginger Meadows, a 24-year-old Colorado dreamer with a wanderlust heart and a front row seat to the untamed beauty of Australia. Back in the late 80s, the world was riding high on Crocodile Dundee fever, and for Ginger, it felt like the perfect time to live the fantasy. She was part of the crew on the luxury yacht Lady G, chasing waterfalls and outback legends. Fearless, magnetic, the kind of spirit that makes you believe nothing can touch you. But the wild doesn't care about spirit. On March 29th, 1987, one day before her 25th birthday, Ginger set out with a crew for Cascade Falls, a jungle paradise tucked deep in the Prince Regent River. The scene looked like movie magic. What no one saw in the postcard view. Over 100 saltwater crocodiles just beneath the surface. Captain Bruce Fitzpatrick knew. His warning was blunt. Don't enter the water. Because salties aren't just big, they're silent, lightning fast, and brutal. But thrill can blur caution. As Bruce climbed higher with others, Ginger and fellow assistant chef Jane Burkett slipped into the shallows, waist deep, smiling like kids in a summer dream. They didn't know the dream had already turned into a trap. From his perch, Bruce saw it, a long, dark ripple cutting through the still water. He screamed. Too late. The crocodile was enormous, focused, and already locked in. Jane hurled a shoe. It hit. The beast flinched. Ginger turned and asked, "What do we do now?" But there was no time for answers. Ginger swam for the bank. 1 stroke, 2, then the river exploded. The croc surged, jaws wide. No splash, no scream, just silence, and then she was gone. Her eyes met Jane's for one final, frozen second. Then the river swallowed her whole. 2 days later, on her birthday, they found what they believed were her remains near a tangled mangrove. But the river still wasn't done. As the rescue boat carried her body away, another crocodile launched 4 feet out of the water, slamming into the hull like a final warning. The crew had to retreat. A larger customs boat eventually carried her home. Her husband, Dwayne, shattered, arrived, confirmed the loss. Ginger's story flashed across headlines worldwide. Yet, somehow, the lesson didn't stick. Decades later, tourists still wade into croc-infested waters, lured by beauty, chasing thrill, ignoring signs, fences, and even history. Ginger wasn't careless. She was curious, brave, and alive. But in Australia's remote north, even the boldest hearts can vanish without a sound. Because here, nature doesn't just bite. It remembers. Death in shallow waters. Some dreams sparkle like sunlight on the sea until they show their teeth. In 1985, Shirley and Durden thought she'd found forever. Ocean views, a fresh start, and a life wrapped in the salty breeze of Port Lincoln Beach in South Australia. She and her husband Barry had traded the dust of their farm for the promise of waves and family memories. With their 4 children by their side, everything felt right, until March 3rd. It was supposed to be just a casual dive. A friend, Keith Coventry, invited Barry out scallop hunting in the bay. Nothing extreme. The water was only 7 feet deep. Shallow enough to stand, shallow enough to feel safe. But that day, the ocean forgot the rules. Lurking beneath the calm surface was something massive and wrong. A nearly 20-foot great white shark, out of place and out of options, had wandered into the shallows. Great whites don't hunt here, not usually, but desperation makes predators unpredictable. As Barry and Keith slowly paddled toward the beach, Shirley remained in the water, proudly holding up her scallop catch, smiling at her husband. That moment, pure, perfect, suspended in time, was shattered in a heartbeat. Barry saw it. A fin, gray, fast, close, he yelled, but the sea answered first. The shark struck with horrifying speed, slamming into Shirley from below and tossing her into the air. Her scream sliced through the wind. Then came the thrashing. Flesh, water, blood, all torn apart as the shark ripped through her hips and legs. Then silence. Her body surfaced. Face down, a pool of red spreading wide around her. She was still alive, maybe for a minute, maybe more. Barry charged toward her, but Keith held him back. The shark hadn't left. It circled. Then, with chilling calm, it returned. In one final strike, it tore Shirley's head from her body, just 50 yards from shore, right in front of her husband, in front of their children. The sea that had promised paradise now carried only horror. Shirley's body was never recovered. The shark was never found. And the beach, once full of laughter, echoed with the silence left behind. This wasn't a deep-sea dive or some thrill-seeking expedition. It was a sunny day, a family outing, a woman standing in water barely waist-deep. But even in the shallows, nature waits. And when it strikes, it doesn't care about beauty or innocence or plans. Shirley Durden's story is more than tragedy. It's a haunting lesson that even in places that feel safe, the wild is never far away. She left behind a family forever changed, a beach forever marked, and a warning as sharp as any fin cutting through the waves. Nature is stunning, but it is never safe. Ripped from the blue. Surf, sun, and sharks, 3 icons of Australia. But only 2 are meant to share the waves. It was a perfect summer day off West Beach, South Australia. The kind of day that feels invincible. 18-year-old Nick Peterson and his 3 closest mates, Ty, Adam, and Andrew, were chasing the kind of thrill only youth in salt water can create. No skis, no fear, just boys, boards, and freedom. That moment before adulthood, when nothing feels dangerous. But danger doesn't wait for permission. Beneath their boat, hidden in the blue, was something ancient and enormous. A great white shark, nearly 20 feet long and weighing over a ton, was circling. Its jaws, engineered to crush bone and split muscle, were locked onto instinct. Locals had seen signs for weeks. Fishing boats nudged. Tourists spooked. A fin, caught on camera just 30 yards from the beach. On that same day, that same sea, Nick jumped in. He wasn't being reckless, just playful. His friend was climbing back aboard. So Nick dove off for a laugh. A splash, a grin, and then chaos. The ocean exploded beneath him. The shark surged like a torpedo, jaws wide, eyes cold. In one devastating strike, it latched onto Nick's shoulder. It was so violent, his friends thought it was a nightmare. But the blood was real. The screams were real. Panic took over. Paddles thrashed. Arms reached. But there's no wrestling with a predator that evolved to end lives in seconds. Nick vanished beneath the surface. When he rose again, he was face down, torn in half. A red halo spread around him, drifting outward like a horror no one could stop. Back on shore, one friend sprinted across the sand, screaming for people to get out of the water. Some witnesses said they saw another shark, a smaller one, feeding on what little was left. Only 2 fragments of Nick's body were ever recovered, just lung tissue, still afloat from trapped air. The aftermath shook the coastline. Helicopters combed the waves. Patrol boats searched day and night. At first, officials feared 2 sharks had attacked. Later, all eyes turned to one, a single 6-meter great white. The call for vengeance was loud. People wanted the shark hunted, killed, erased. But then, Nick's parents spoke. Calm, heartbroken, brave. "We don't blame the shark," his father said. Nick respected the ocean, and we still do. And that's where this story bends. This wasn't a monster. The shark wasn't evil. It didn't plan or hate. It reacted, just as it always has, to splashes, silhouettes, and the rhythm of survival. Nick's death was tragic, but not meaningless. It was a moment when wild instinct met human joy, when a perfect day turned irreversible. The sea doesn't hate, and it doesn't choose. It simply is. Beautiful, brutal, and always watching. The crocodile hunter's last adventure. Steve Irwin didn't just wrestle danger. He danced with it. With a grin that could disarm a cobra and a heart bigger than the outback, he made the wild feel like home. But on one shadowed September morning in 2006, the wild reminded us who's really in charge. This wasn't a stunt. This wasn't showbiz. This was Steve's final plunge. And it came with a sting. At 44, he was unstoppable. Fearless. Filming a documentary with an eerily prophetic title, Ocean's Deadliest. But Steve wasn't chasing death. He was chasing sharks. Thrill and wonder wrapped in toothy beauty. Alongside him, cameraman Justin Lyons and director John Stainton, who, in a strange twist of fate, had a bad feeling before the trip. He even wrote his will. On board the Croc One, their vessel sliced across the Coral Sea like it had a mission. They dove in, wetsuits zipped, adrenaline high, hunting for that perfect wildlife shot. But the visibility? Terrible. The sharks? Mia, just as they were about to wrap, a sleek shadow glided beneath them. A stingray. Now stingrays aren't hitmen of the sea. They're shy, gentle, armed with a venomous barb, but rarely hostile. Steve saw beauty. A peaceful moment he could capture for Bindy's wildlife show. Something simple, serene. But the ocean doesn't follow scripts. As Steve hovered above, camera rolling, the ray suddenly surged upward. Its tail snapped like lightning. Its barb struck Steve square in the chest. It pierced him, a hole 2 inches wide, directly through the heart. Steve's reaction? Not panic, not screams. Just 3 words. Keep filming, because that's who he was. Educator first. Even as the water reddened, even as life slipped away, Justin surfaced, Steve gasping, the sun blazing down. "It got my lung," he said. But it hadn't. It got his heart. Time was a whisper. Back on the inflatable boat, the crew pressed hard on his chest, shouting for help, praying against the impossible. But Steve? He knew. His last words weren't polished for camera. They were raw. "I'm dying." And then, silence. The man who'd stared down crocs, hugged venomous snakes, and brought millions into the wild with him, was gone. News shattered across the globe like thunder. Kids, conservationists, world leaders, everyone felt it. At Australia Zoo, his home, his heartbeat, they grieved in the croc enclosure where it all began. And the moment he died, the footage was deleted. Justin made the call. Some things are too sacred to air. But here's the thing. Steve's story didn't end in that reef. His legacy rose stronger. Bindy and Robert, just kids, stepped into his boots with the same wild spark. Terry, heartbroken but fearless, stood with him. The mission lived on. Steve Irwin made nature thrilling. He made danger feel like wonder. He made khaki cool. And somewhere, through rustling leaves or the splash of a croc, you can still feel his spirit. Loud, loving, and larger than life. Now, after hearing all this, you might be thinking, should I even visit Australia? Don't worry. We got you. Let's take a look at a few more wild locals you might want to keep out of your selfie zone. Killed by a cassowary. It sounds like a joke until it isn't. Imagine a bird with the colors of a peacock, the stare of a raptor, and the power of a sledgehammer. That's the cassowary. Crowned with a helmet-like crest, armed with 5-inch dagger claws, and wrapped in prehistoric attitude, is one of the most dangerous birds on Earth. And in 1926, a teenager named Philip McLean paid the ultimate price for crossing one. He was just 17, out in far North Queensland with his younger brother, Granville. The boys were looking for their horses when they heard chaos. Their dog had wandered off and picked the wrong enemy. Trapped and being attacked by an enraged cassowary, the dog was yelping desperate. Granville tried to help. One kick later, he was on the ground. Then Philip stepped in. No weapon, just a horse bridle and a heart full of instinct. But cassowaries don't back down. And this one, it struck with terrifying speed. In one lightning move, it slashed Philip's throat open with a claw built more like a blade. Staggering, bleeding, still in shock, Philip tried to run for help. He made it just 200 yards before collapsing on the dirt track, fighting to live after trying to protect his brother and his dog. He never made it home. Philip became the first recorded human death by cassowary, a brutal entry in the book of strange and shocking wildlife encounters. Cassowaries look like relics from another time, and in many ways they are. Standing nearly 6 feet tall and capable of sprinting 30 miles per hour, they don't just look intimidating. They are. One well-placed kick can disembowel a grown man. Scientists still aren't sure what triggers their attacks. Territorial instincts? Loud noises? The wrong glance? No one really knows. What we do know is this. They remember, they react, and when they fight to win. Human deaths by cassowary are extremely rare, but the risk isn't zero, and Philip's story proves that. So if you ever find yourself wandering through the dense forests of Queensland and you spot one of these blue-faced giants, back away, slowly. Don't turn your back. Don't make noise. And above all, don't underestimate a bird that could have walked with dinosaurs and still wins a fight today. When kindness meets instinct, the outcome isn't always a fairy tale. Sometimes it ends in silence. Kangaroos might not top the list of nature's deadliest, but don't be fooled by the cartoon image. These animals are built for battle. A red kangaroo can launch a strike with the force of a heavyweight boxer, only faster, sharper, and with claws. In 2022, on a quiet patch of farmland in Redmond, Western Australia, one of these animals turned a peaceful life into a brutal tragedy. This isn't some bush legend. It's the haunting true story of Peter Eads, a gentle man with a heart so big. He raised over 60 alpacas, each with names, quirks, and routines. But what defined Peter most was his kindness. The kind that doesn't flinch when a fragile orphan joey stares up at you, alone and trembling. Peter didn't hesitate. He took it in, fed it, loved it, and gave it a home among his fluffy companions. For 3 years, that kangaroo was more than a pet. It was family, but nature doesn't always return love with loyalty. As the joey grew, so did its instincts. Testosterone surged. Its body hardened. And where there once stood a playful creature, now towered a 50-kilo powerhouse wired for combat. Spring arrived. Peter stepped into the paddock, expecting another normal morning. But nature had other plans. The kangaroo snapped into fighting mode. Standing tall, tail locked, claws out, it attacked with everything it had. The kicks came fast, brutal, relentless. A lifetime of compassion was no shield against raw instinct. Peter fell, and still the animal didn't stop. By the time help arrived, it was too late. Paramedics couldn't get close. The kangaroo stood guard like a soldier, wild-eyed and ready to strike again. Police were forced to act. The animal was put down, and only then could they reach Peter, who lay motionless beside the farm he loved. Australia hadn't seen a fatal kangaroo attack since 1936. This one shook the nation. A man who gave everything to the animals he adored, taken by one he tried to save. Peter had once said he wanted to be buried beside his favorite alpaca. Instead, he became something else, a stark reminder, a voice in the wind that whispers a truth too many forget. Love wildlife, yes, but never forget it's still wild. Nature in Australia doesn't just whisper danger. It shouts it with teeth, claws, and venom. But every close call, every wild encounter tells a story worth hearing. And if you've made it this far, you're not just a viewer. You're part of the adventure. So if you felt the thrill, the fear, or even just a little curiosity, share, subscribe, and join us for the next untamed story. Because out here, survival is never guaranteed, but the stories are unforgettable.